Welcome into Steelers Latest, your daily spot for all news and information related to your Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm your host, Cole Denis, and please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content to stay up to date with everything Steelers. But let's get rolling into talking about how crucial this game Sunday is. Now, I'm a little hesitant to say this, but might be kind of a must win. It's week 3, I know. But let me give you the argument for why this is such an important game this early into the season. Because you look through the history of our seasons in recent years, there's always one or two gimme games that we give away, and by the end of the year, you're looking back at it and you're like, oh, we could have been 12-5, we could have been 13-4, we could have had the 1 seed, and then it doesn't happen because we give away games to weaker opponents, and already happened last week, in my opinion, against Seattle. Going into this year, I was hammering home the fact that weeks 1 through 6 our first 5 games because the bye week is week 5 this year, just brutal in its own right. But the goal was 5-0 because that's the easiest stretch. The best we can do now is 4-1. Got to recover from last week's first loss of the year. I really think if we drop another one of these next 3 games against the Patriots, Vikings, or the Browns, could derail this season real quickly. It's going to be hard to overcome 3-2 or 2-3 start after week 7. Once week 7 hits, oh boy, the schedule gets quite brutal, quite fast. You got the Bengals twice, Packers, the Colts, the Chargers, Bears, Bills, Ravens twice, Dolphins, Lions, Browns again. And I'd like to say that the Bengals would be a guarantee now that they don't have Joe Burrow. We've lost to Jake Browning before in previous years. The Colts going into this year, we all thought they weren't going to be good with Daniel Jones at quarterback. They've scored on every drive. Their punter hasn't touched the field yet. The Chargers, a team that's kind of always been mediocre, you're like, okay, they won't take too big of a step forward. They're looking great. They're 2-0 to start the year. Bears, I think that one's probably the most gimme, and the Dolphins are the most gimme. But the Bills, they're the Bills. They got Josh Allen. They got the defending MVP. The Ravens got Lamar and Derrick Henry in the backfield. We know what the Ravens are. They're the toughest opponent we have face every season. The Lions, they're going to have an explosive offense again. And I'd love to throw the Browns in there with the Bears and the Dolphins as being probably the closest to guarantee wins. But the Browns we seem to split every year with since Ben's retired. So, not feeling too confident if we start sliding here early that we'll be able to make up ground later. Because look at that. That seems like at best you're splitting the rest of the games post week 7. And at that point we'd be 5-0. Got 12 games left. I think you could go 6-6, or we'd be 4-1. I think you could go 6-6, and the year 10-7 again. That would be best case scenario with that brutal stretch. If we can finish this easy part of the schedule 4-1, which is important, and this Sunday's game is a crucial one here because once again, a sneaky opponent on the up and up. Got the new head coach Mike Vrabel in New England. Got the second-year quarterback Drake May in New England. They've been looking decent. They're off to a 1-1 start after beating the Dolphins last week. But let's talk a little bit more about this game and my week 3 standouts. Who do I think is going to ball out in this one? First off, let's start on the defensive side of the ball. Actually, let's do a recap of the first 2 weeks. I would consider myself 1 for 4 in this, so batting 250, baseball average, not too bad, but prediction average. Would like to raise that up this week. Last week we went 1 for 2, choosing Jalen Warren and TJ Watt. Warren had a great game. Watt disappointed me. But let's start with the defense here. Nick Herbig, I think replacing Alex Highsmith is going to get the job done once again. Last year, you look at his performances through the 6 games he played, filling in for Alex Highsmith. He kind of balled out, especially looked at that Cincinnati game last year. And if you don't want to look at last year's game, just look at last week. He was an impact player last week also with the tipped pass from Cam Hayward ended up in Herbig's hands. He returned 41 yards, putting us on the 5. He accounts for the 7 points, 7 out of our 17 points last week because he has that pick returned to the 5-yard line. I think he's going to get to the quarterback for the first time this week. And don't be surprised if he's able to get a strip sack like he did against the Bengals last year. He's one of those guys that go after the ball when he gets to the quarterback. So don't be surprised if he's able to jar it loose from the young player like Drake May. Also, I think he's going to rack up a couple tackles once again like he did last week. Maybe a couple tackles for a loss. That would be very nice to see. Moving to the offensive side of the ball, though, give me Calvin Austin. Little hesitant to go with Calvin Austin here, but we know Patriots' strong suit on defense is their run game, so we're going to have to exploit the pass game. Christian Gonzalez being their best corners and one of the best corners in the league when he is playing. He's going to be matched up against DK Metcalf. He's not guaranteed to play yet, but he is questionable and possibly returning in this week against us. So that leaves either Davis or Jones to pick up Austin if they're going to play man coverage. And I think those are fairly reasonable matchups. Calvin Austin to believe he can get open against them. They're not shut down guys, so hopefully he can create some space. We know Rodgers can find him even in those tight windows. He showed it during Week 1 against the Jets with a couple plays that you would see on You Got Mossed back in the day. But let's move on to the game plan for this one. What should our game plan be going in to this game against the Patriots? As I said earlier, the Patriots defense thrives when you're running the ball. They've allowed the third least rushing yards this year, but 29th worst pass defense in the league. They are struggling right now in the pass game. So we have to capitalize on that. I think if you let Aaron Rodgers rip it and rip it this week, that's what we're gonna look for. That's where we're gonna thrive. Uh, I know the desire is always to have a balanced game, but there's a clear advantage to the Packs defensive line versus our offensive line. And team up some quick hitters for Aaron Rodgers so he can get the ball out a little faster because him taking all the hits he has been taking through the first 2 weeks, once again, 41 years old. We don't know how long he could take a pounding back there from opposing teams' defensive lines before he's knocked out of the game. There's a clear thing we can exploit here. Once again, take advantage of it. Don't play into their strengths. Play into their weaknesses. Now moving to the defensive side of the ball, it's not going to change much from the past couple weeks, but I'd focus more on the Patriots' pass game because all but one of their touchdowns come from their pass game. Once again, their passing offense is like a top 10 pass offense in the league. Their rush offense is struggling so far to start the season through 2 weeks. So, focus in on the pass game. I'd basically go zone coverage, maybe a little bit of man there against the young player like Drake Man. Figured out all the zones, throw in some disguises, try to confuse him. I think our pass rush, once again, can beat this offensive line. This offensive line is struggling a little bit like ours. They've allowed the same amount of sacks, 7 sacks through 2 weeks. We can capitalize on that and take advantage with the second highest paid defensive player on one side. And I think Nick Herbig, like I said, is going to get a sack. Hopefully Cam Hayward can eat in the middle. Maybe Derek Harmon in his few reps can shut down things in the middle. But when it comes to rushing downs, load the box. Get off your one-on-one assignments versus blockers. We got to shed blocks. And once we get to the ball carrier, bring them down. Don't let him buy you. Don't let him hit a juke move or a spin move on you. Look at his hips, follow his hips, tackle through his hips, bring him to the ground. That's what we got to do on defense. Execute a game plan finally. We know what they want to do once again. They want to pass the ball in New England. They want Drake May to lead them to the promised land, and we got to cut that down this week for the first time all year. put some confidence in us once again. And as we talk about confidence, have I lost confidence since the beginning of the season? Am I going to choose the Steelers to win against the Patriots still? Of course, I'm choosing the Steelers to beat the Patriots this weekend. 27-23. Once again, I think it lines up. If you look at the two depth charts, if you look at the talent spread across each roster, I think the Steelers have the slight margin here and will be able to squeak this one out. It's not going to be a dominant performance of any means where we run away with this game because do think at this point of the season it's a fairly even matchup based on stats and performances through 2 weeks. But hopefully, our defense can get us back on track on that side of the ball, build a little confidence, build a little morale on the defensive side, and hopefully, Aaron Rodgers can continue to look good to great for us. Week one, great performance. Week two, I'm gonna give it a good performance. I know it didn't look all too good if you just looked at the stats, but some of the throws he made were pretty spectacular if you look at the film. But that has been it from Steelers Latest. I've been your host, Cole Dennis, and I will see you tomorrow.